Citizens, President Awall here, and I'm bringing you what is arguably the #1 deck in the world right now. It's this Luke Skywalker deck that I've seen 5 out of the top 25 players in the world use. Currently #1 and #3 players using it. It's really, really consistent. I'm going to break it down right after this gameplay, but I wanted to take it straight into some 2v2s to show you kind of how it can handle anything from a massive mob of low-cost units to AT-STs to multiple heroes, just to kind of show you the versatility and the kind of scope that this deck can handle. I'm currently teamed up here in this 2v2 with one of my guild members. I'm getting so close to hitting the next tier, hitting tier 6, so I can almost taste it. But this deck overall does not have Ben Kenobi. That's one of the things that's really unique about it. I have unique Ben Kenobi, level 2. I've decided not to put him in here, and I kind of understand why that's not in the deck. Ben Kenobi, with his Jedi mind tricks, the area of effect takes over enemy units, converts them to your team, but it's really situational, and it's really easy to counter. If the enemy sees you drop that card, they can just drop some crap units in front of there, and Kenobi will just convert those lower cost units, like something like a Twi'lek's level cost, like a 1 or 2 cost, and then you won't get that conversion value out of Kenobi, and then you just have a relatively tanky character that does average damage that's moving in. This deck, as far as tanking options is concerned, has an MLC3 light tank, as well as a Wookiee, which is really, really great for that frontline action. But Luke Skywalker, don't forget, he is a tank. He's got 1,489 health. I've got a level 2 Skywalker. He can deflect shots back to the enemy, and he has a nice melee attack that does 250% damage. So don't be afraid to get in the game with him, but don't get as aggressive as you would get with, say, a Darth Vader character. And this queue time is longer than I expected, so I guess I'm just going to end up explaining the whole deck while we're waiting for the queue, and we'll just show it to you. There it is, yes! I also have Polar Bear with a minigun that I'll show you, and a number of other mob units as well. I've got Grenadier for wave clear. I've got Rebel Troopers to go up against the millions of AT-STs that you're going to end up seeing on the ladder, and I also have Marauders to counter AT-STs, and also light tanks and the rocket units, which can be so freaking annoying in 1v1s. So here we go. Let's see what we can do in this particular game. And it looks like we're up against a Dengar here, so that's going to be interesting. Light tank in the bottom lane, I'm not going to worry about it too much. I think that my ally normally has that kind of stuff handled pretty well. I'm going to drop Polar Bear with a minigun here to help focus this down, and going to kind of send up some support units in the top lane and maybe defend mid, because this appears to be where the majority of the action is. This is where your X-Wing comes in real handy, taking down those fodder units so that you can safely, okay, back up. That was unnecessary damage. I should have backed up there. But so that you can safely take down explodey probes. Let's just put a Wookiee out front so that these assassins don't do unnecessary damage to me. This is one of those amazing situations to use Marauders, because they can really pop up right behind, light tank units like this, and do a really serious amount of damage that you can't really ignore. I dropped Polar Bear with a minigun here. I'm going to see if I can't tank. So here's one of those higher risk kind of maneuvers that I was talking about earlier. While he's focusing me, Polar Bear with a minigun there was dropping single target damage in, or that was at least the plan. But it looks like he dropped some counter units for Polar Bear with a minigun, so that didn't work. Regardless, we're going to drop MLC3 light tank. My ally is kind of handling things quite well, and so far so good. And we've taken down bottom lane. Top lane, we have a significant advantage with this deck. And with 2 tanking units moving in on this, of course I'll be very, very careful, but I'm just going to take a quick swipe here, use my ability to take down this structure, and I'm immediately going to back out. And in order to counter this, I'm going to drop Grenadier on the ground, which does a significant amount of damage. Ooh, back. Gonna back up there. I'm going to go ahead and save my energy and wait for them to come back. Now the Grenadier ended up doing some pretty serious damage to that set of units essentially, and that's something that, okay. X-Wing, okay decision to use X-Wing, but I was kind of maxed out on energy. So I'm going to drop another Polar Bear with a minigun here, and it looks like we're just going to push straight up the gut. And I think you guys are starting to kind of see this, but in this deck, it essentially focuses on having every type of unit to counter with, basically. And whether it's, a mob, whether it is a, really heavily armored unit or a unit with a ton of HP, this deck has the counter option to that, and he's just going to chase me down. One thing that I'll do here, oftentimes, is just drop a polar bear with a minigun down, and then use him to counter heroes that are chasing after me. And polar bear with a minigun will drill them with unbelievable amounts of single target damage. We'll go ahead and say good game here, and he'll take them out. So pretty handily taking that top lane. My ally took the bottom lane, and it worked out pretty well. So let me just show you the deck on screen really quick, and I'll just bring some more gameplay to you. I didn't have any AT-STs to go up against there, so that's one thing to consider. But this is it. There's your Luke, your MLC3 light tanking option, your Wookiee warrior, and polar bear with a minigun. I've got Gregorian Rebel. I've got level 4 version of this. Great for taking down turrets, great for taking down AT-STs. And yeah, it does handle AoE damage pretty well. It's got 765 health. And then to take down AT-STs and rocket units, obviously we've got Rebel Troopers, we've got Marauders that are a wonderful counter to those two units. And then X-Wing is the best wave clear. It's the most consistent wave clear in the game. So good at taking down just damn near anything, and it just provides that consistent counter. And this was kind of the odd card here that might catch people off guard, but Rebel Grenadier is very, very effective if you have a number of tanking cards in front of it to be able to basically protect it. So that's basically the crux of using that card. So other people, there was the flamethrower card, kind of has been going in and out of popularity for AoE clearing units. And, obviously the probe is a popular unit, the exploding probe. And I would say that Grenadier is probably the most consistent performer if you can keep them alive. It's all about getting that timing right and getting that positioning right with the card so that essentially, in an optimal scenario, you have your hero there, you have one of the tanking units there, an MLC3 light tank or Wookiee, you have like a Marauders running out front to distract the enemy, and then you have Grenadier behind that. And generally what people will have to do to take down your MLC3 light tank, or your MLC3 tank, I don't think it's called light tank, is it? It's just tank. Anyway, they'll have to drop down multiple low-cost sets of units, such as assassins, for example, or stormtroopers to deal with that, and Grenadier will one-shot them in some cases. Guaranteed to at least take down any of those units in 2 shots, depending on the positioning of where the grenade lands, and that's something that is super, super effective. And you can kind of play defense with your Luke Skywalker with that Grenadier card, and what I mean by that is get a little too aggressive with your Luke Skywalker, and they will ignore cards like the Grenadier, which are doing terrible, terrible damage to all of their units. And they'll also ignore cards like, or at least temporarily ignore cards like Gregorian Rebels, Polar Bear with a minigun. I was trying to show that to you in the last game. If my energy was there, that's what I would have done. Basically, you run away and you drop down, obviously Polar Bear with a minigun, and he'll focus heroes that'll kind of go rogue. It's an amazing counter to heroes that go rogue, and even if it's not a heroes going rogue type of situation, last time you saw me when I went in on that tower, right? I went in on that tower potentially to die, like guaranteed to die, but with the purpose of having that Polar Bear with a minigun firing on that turret. It's worth it. It can do an ungodly amount of damage in 5 seconds. It can essentially take down a turret if it can just focus that turret and that turret only. It's really, really nice. Unless they're a much higher level, like a level 10 plus, and it'll take about 6 or 7 seconds for it to solo a turret, which is really, really sick damage, as you know. So here we go. Just going to drop a Wookiee up the gut and see what they end up doing. Going to be careful. Looks like they're going to commit a bit more to the bottom lane than normal. And what we'll do is just drop Polar Bear with a minigun here. And I'm going to go ahead and start to focus the top lane. I'm just going to drop some Marauders down and just build up a little bit of a push and get them to start thinking about other lanes other than that one. And hopefully Wookiee will be up in time Look, perfect. I've got a perfect counter here. So let me go ahead and get in here. I want to kill this rocket unit, guaranteed. There it is. It goes down, and we ended up taking down a leader without even being there. I'm going to steal their health. I tanked a lot of the damage there for my units, which is fine. And I'm going to drop down MLC3 light tank. And once this turret is down, I'm going to back up. They are inevitably going to target me. I don't know what that Boba Fett is doing. That really doesn't make sense, whatever that Boba Fett is doing. I'm going to back up, I'm going to heal up, and I'm going to let those units walk back down this lane. And that's my opportunity to use my X-Wing to clear them out. Assuming that there's enough units there to make that worth my while. And no, there is not. There is just a tank there or something. So I'm going to drop down Polar Bear with a minigun here on the back lines. And there is the opportunity for me to basically pound down this lane. And I'm going to drop down troopers right in front of that turret, as well as the Wookiee, and see what I can get done. Dropping down the Grenadier here up front, I was expecting him actually to deploy some lower health units. I'm going to make sure I'm walking first to tank for that Grenadier, just trying to do a bit more defense with my kind of high impact units. The Grenadier went down, which is fine, and I'm going to just target this tower, drop Marauders, and die. And the purpose of this is, let's see here, I don't know what the purpose of that was. I didn't necessarily need to die. I thought I was going to get more pot shots on the tower. That was probably a mistake. So let's just drop down our Polar Bear with a minigun, and I'm not afraid. I'm going to post this video with me making that embarrassing mistake of me just like dying for no reason. I'll just post the video up anyway. This is unedited gameplay, so we're not perfect. So there's another W. So you saw the versatility of that deck, and you just saw the just general stompage that it can have even in 2v2s. The applications in 1v1 are pretty obvious. But we're going to go ahead and do one more 2v2 with this so you can see it. I haven't got to show you how it can go up against AT-STs and how effective it can be at that. It is really good up against AT-STs. I mean, Luke does a decent amount of damage himself, but with the Polar Bear with a minigun option there, with Marauders and Troopers, it is an automatic AT-ST counter. I'm seeing a lot of people move away from AT-ST recently on the Empire side. Let me know if you guys are seeing the same thing in the comments. But I'm seeing a lot of people go light tank instead, simply because most Rebel decks had super hard counters for AT-ST in their deck. When I'm looking through the top tier decks though on the ladder, most of those still have AT-ST in them. So I think this might just be like kind of a mid-tier meta shift, whereas top-tier meta is still very AT-ST centric. I think that's still one of the strongest Empire cards and one of the most consistent performers. It's a game-changing card, essentially. Whenever somebody drops one, you have to address it. There is no ignoring it. And also, there's no quick fix. It's very different than something like a Gonk Droid, kind of in the middle. Gonk Droid you do have to address. Not with too much action, though. You don't need to necessarily almost every time do at least 2 deploys to do with a Gonk Droid. You can do 1 sometimes if you do it right. With something like an AT-ST, you have to do at least 2 deploys, play 2 cards. And generally, you want to get your hero over there for that supplementary damage. That's a game-changing card. I think they should keep the cost of that unit the same. And there's just really some buffs that need to happen on the Empire side, in my opinion. I think a lot of people kind of share that opinion. Just a few small buffs to some common cards that are used may make a big difference. It feels like Empire is harder to put together a deck for and to be effective with. However, I was looking through a Reddit thread on the Star Wars Force Arena subreddit, and they put together some statistics of the top 25 players, and they counted up how many games they played Empire versus Rebel, and it was surprising that it was over 60% of their games played was as Empire. It was pretty surprising. Now, whether those were recent games or whatever, I guess, maybe recently it hasn't been Empire, but I think it's reasonable to assume that the majority of the games, if not half of the games in total that they have played, have been with these recent balance changes and these implementation of all these new cards that happened at the release of this game. Which says to me that if you're very skilled, Empire is still definitely viable. But I can tell that there's definitely a vibe across the entire community, including our guild chat, comments on the videos, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. You're seeing a similar sentiment about Empire, and a similar kind of, I don't know, a similar sort of dissatisfaction with it. Like, people want Emperor Palpatine to be awesome, and they want, ooh, wow, I'm getting drilled, back, back, back. Wow, I was hitting back so many times. It's okay. My units are moving in. It looks like, unfortunately, with the timing here, though, that my Grenadier is going to end up tanking. Let me see if I can deploy a MLC3 light tank here to deal with this. Got it. And is that a Grand Moff Tarkin I'm up against? It is. Very rare to see a Grand Moff Tarkin. Be very, very careful. That orbital strike, back, 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 is very, very dangerous. And I just need to be really careful with that. He looked like he picked up his health there. I'm going to take down this rocket unit, even if that costs my life, because my MLC3 tank was getting drilled with it, and I needed to kill it anyway. And I was so far away from my base, dying and going back to my base is totally fine. Not to mention I was eyeballing the bottom lane, and my ally is getting super, super aggressive down there, and this was an opportunity for me to essentially distract the enemy team while I made an additional push happen. So, gonna run in. MLC3 light tank here will help a lot. This is another suiciding situation for me. Hopefully this orbital strike doesn't kill my guard. It does not, which is gorgeous. And as you can see, the polar bear with the minigun is just destroying people. As long as it stays alive, everybody dies. Looks like bottom lane is getting torn up here by Vader, so I need to address this. Oh god, I need to drop like some kind of X-Wing. There we go, there's the X-Wing. And I'm gonna drop a Grenadier here on the back lines. Wow, we need to clean this up. That was gross. That was super, super, super gross. And now it's time for me to deal with this rocket on the back line. And I need to make sure that this top lane does not also get taken. I might need to go for the win here. This might need to be an FTW situation. So let's drop down a Marauders here and just continue the pressure and continue this top lane push. We're really going to need to pull this out at the last minute, I think. And hopefully my Grenadier can get some... Oh god, I'm letting myself get just drilled there. That was bad. And X-Wing, get some work done. There it is. And he looks like he got a double kill on the enemy. And I'm going to drop a Chewie and some Rebels. And we ended up taking that tower down. So now we have the tower advantage. Wow, there's the W. That was super, super close. That was very, very close. And as you can see there, that X-Wing was super duper duper clutch at the last minute to clear out those waves once they were pushing in on our base. That was a really fun game. That was a legitimately fun game. So before we end the video, let me just open this play pack, which are the most lucrative packs here for new players. 500 gold, 1 crystal, 22 probes, got some Grenadiers, got some rocket action, and got myself a nice little grenade. That's great. So the thing I do once I get cards, I kind of told this in my new tips for new players video, I just automatically upgrade all of them. That's what I'm doing. So there you go. If you want to subscribe to my channel for daily Star Wars Force Arena content, I've got a picture of my avatar right up here, right up there. And I got 2 suggested videos over there. Watch them. My videos are great, and they're coming out every day. So subscribe and turn on your notifications. Thanks for watching, citizens. I'll see you in the next one. Adios.